From your initial login, you'll be taken to the employee dashboard. The dashboard is going to be our attempt to show things that may be important to you and try and minimize clicks from having to go through too deep into the system. We'll still let you go into the system to look at additional detail, but the employee dashboard will allow you to do most things throughout the course of a common business day. As we move from top to bottom in the dashboard, we'll review some of the features. We just have an ongoing clock indicating where you are at any point in the day. We have punch and transfer features just like we had from the front page. This gives you the ability to log into the self-service and do some of the same functionality, maybe check the last time you clocked in or clocked out, and be able to record those features. So I'm going to go ahead and punch just from the dashboard. And as we punch, it'll just indicate that the punch was received, and the punch will be posting to the timesheet here in just a few moments. If I were to refresh the dashboard simply by clicking on the home button, what you'll see now is my last clock in is captured here in the dashboard. So this is useful if you want to just check to see when's the last time you punched and make sure that you're capturing punches throughout the day as needed. It'll also show down here your in and out times and any hours that are calculated as a result of these real-time punches. As we move to the right, we have a timesheet summary gadget. So this gives you the ability to see your hours calculated as they come into the system, summarized, and you'll be able to see your timesheet totals here. So if you are an exempt employee, like I am currently, but I'm still punching, you're going to see how the system offsets some of the auto pay hours versus the calculated hours. At the end of the day, I'm still concerned with just at the summary that I'm getting paid the total number of hours that I expect. If I've calculated any overtime as a result of a non-exempt employee, those will also show here. I can move backwards and forwards in pay periods if needed to, so if you wanted to double check your hours compared against pay stubs from prior pay periods, you can do that simply by clicking backwards through the date range or clicking on the calendar icon and navigating to the date range that you wish to check. As we scroll down in the dashboard, we also have what we call the in and out or approaching hours dashboard. So if there is a recommendation in terms of when the county wants you to take a meal, that'll be shown here, meal time, punch out before. It'll also show you how you're performing against any schedule that might be in the system. So if you're scheduled for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, it'll actually show the progression of your hours there and can be a handy reminder to show where you are at any given point in the day. One commonly used feature, leave management, is one that we see will be used from the dashboard quite often. So this is where you can actually come in and request leave. So if I were to click on request leave, I now have the ability to come in here, put a title. Okay, so I'm just going to call this test leave request. I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to go ahead and say this was an unscheduled annual event, and maybe I need to take it for next Monday. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the date. I'm going to say kids out of school. I'm going to go ahead and submit that request, and once I'm ready to submit that request, I'm going to click OK. What this does is it initiates a workflow, an email reminder to my supervisor to go review that request and potentially approve or decline. If several days have gone past and my supervisor still has not responded to that request, I can go ahead and click on a request and then say send reminder. What this will do is for any open request, it'll just initiate an email from the system asking the supervisor to review that. So if you're getting close to the end of the pay period, obviously it's something that you can ask your supervisor to review that request and make sure that it's still okay to take. As we continue down through the dashboard, we can see the schedule. If you're assigned to a schedule within the system, that schedule will show here within the schedule box. It'll default to a daily view, but you can change it to a weekly view to see your scheduled days throughout the course of a week. We have, as a result of the project, assigned most employees to either a flex shift, meaning that the system really doesn't care when you come into work, but there are some employees that have a defined shift. And if you are one of those employees that have a defined shift, you're going to see those start and end times through the course of the view in the schedule summary, either at a daily or weekly view. Another neat feature that we have in the system is our leave shared calendar. So as we spoke about just a couple minutes ago about the requesting leave, as you request leave and as those requests get approved in the system, we actually have a leave shared calendar so that you can almost call this as a departmental calendar. So you can see how many people might be out on any given day within your area of security, generally at a department. In this case, I see that we've got 2 requests on October 2nd, or two time offs. And so I can actually click on that. I can see which employees within my department or area are going to be gone. So this is a real helpful tool both to employees and supervisors when requesting and approving time to see how many people may be gone in their area at any given time. As we continue down the dashboard and look at our last few gadgets, we have some exception gadgets. So if we look at the exception summary, what that'll do is if we have a schedule in the system, as we talked about just a moment ago, the system will evaluate those punches against schedule and determine whether or not we have any absences, missed punches, tardies, early outs, etc. If you've been associated to a schedule in the system, you can see how your punches are actually aligning to those schedule. And this would be a good area also from an attendance review, just to make sure that you are working against the expected schedule. And if you are seeing exceptions here, you can review with your supervisor to make sure that the system's capturing time accurately. Okay. You'll also see private messaging here. So as you make requests, you'll be able to see how those requests have been approved or reviewed or declined by your supervisor. So you can see those messages here. You can also initiate on behalf of an employee, initiate a request or a private message within NOVAtime. This does not replace emails. This is just maybe as you're thinking about something time and attendance related or schedule related that you want to initiate a message to your supervisor from within the NOVAtime system. So this gives you the opportunity to do that. Any public messages that the county may be sharing, you'll see down here as well. So examples of public messages could be, open enrollment starting. Don't forget to submit your timesheet. Other different things that they may deem important and they want to get as a tool out there for any type of messaging that they want the mass to see as they log into their self-service. From here, we're going to dive into some of the detail pages that you can go to, but this gave you a pretty good overview of what the dashboard can do for you. And as mentioned, you'll spend the majority of your time within NOVAtime simply within this dashboard. The next section will review a little bit about the detail should you want to see additional information beyond the data displayed in these gadgets. As we look into going into more detail from each of these gadgets, we can simply click on the arrows within each of these gadgets to go to the detail page. This is also a good time to come over here and talk about the navigation menu. On the left-hand side, we have a navigation menus for pages that have been made available to you. Each of these pages can start from within the gadgets, or you can simply click on what's referred to oftenly as the hamburger menu or the navigation menu, and just hover over the 2 categories, attendance and scheduling, and be able to navigate directly to those pages, those detail pages beyond the dashboard. The first one we're going to take a look at is either simply by clicking on attendance timesheets or the arrow next to timesheet, and this is the detail timesheet. So while we're capturing a summary view from the dashboard, the detail timesheet is going to give us just that, a lot more detail that we can take a look at. So as a non-exempt employee, you're generally punching in and out, okay, not having the need to change punches. If you've been given the opportunity to edit punches, you simply can click in the timesheet and edit those punches as needed, or maybe add a missing punch. For exempt employees, you can come in here and add your exception time. The county is recommending that you request time off, but if you do have unscheduled or let's say sick time or something that's after the fact, you can come in and enter that time directly to the timesheet simply by selecting a date. So let's just say that maybe I was out on 9/27. I need to select my pay code of sick. Because sick does not require any in and out times, I can just come over to my regular hours column and say I was out a full day. I'm going to go ahead and select save. And as I do that as an exempt employee, what you'll see is my auto pay line will automatically decrement to now make sure that my hours are totaling 80 for the pay period. Pretty neat feature that we don't make you have to do the math, and the system will automatically do the math for you to ensure proper pay through the One Solution and payroll process. So as we back up a little bit into the timesheet navigation here, some of the same features that we saw in the dashboard. The ability to navigate pay periods, the ability to navigate backwards and forward in a date range, or select the calendar view if we wanted to go specifically to a date in the past. Okay, the ability to look at our timesheet from a daily view, should we want to look at one day at a time. Okay, I'm going to go back to the detailed timesheet here. The ability to expand the header. Within the header, we still have some redundant functions. What you're going to see in the NOVAtime system is you can do a lot of different things in different ways, and it's going to become a preference to how you as the employee or end user want to go about those functions. So you notice here I still have the ability to go into my detailed timesheet and do a punch or a transfer just like I did from within the dashboard. Okay, so if I'm an employee and I'm going to go ahead and transfer into another job or position, I can type in that job and be able to transfer in and say maybe the first 2 hours of my day was in my primary job, the next 2 hours of my day is going to be in my secondary job, and you can indicate to the system simply by clicking, typing in what your secondary job is and then clicking punch, and now the system will start allocating that time accordingly. Okay. As we get down into the actual timesheet view, we talked about how we can add time. Standard Office-like tool buttons up here. Save, delete, undo. Recalculate generally is not needed. Only if an admin or system owner tells you that we've made changes will we ever recalculate timesheets, but as an employee, you'll generally never have to recalculate a timesheet. As we look at more functions here, we can actually get into some additional functions that people within the county may need. So we will have a separate video for those within the health department and others that may be allocating time through what we call time distribution, but we won't go into that as part of our general training. Within the timesheet, we have the detail, just the date, the pay code, if there's in and out times associated to punches, the hours associated to those punches or pay code, how we're totaling through the day, how we're totaling through the week, and if we're allocating to secondary jobs outside of our default. Okay, we talked about the auto pay code. That's just going to be for exempt employees, and that's going to make sure that that timesheet tallies to 80 hours for a given pay period. As we scroll down to the timesheet summary, it's just that. It's a summary of all the pay codes used in the timesheet above. So we can see now we no longer have the daily breakdown, but just a summary by pay code. So what we see here as an exempt employee, we've got 80 hours. As mentioned, if we are doing things within the health department, and secondary videos will show if we're distributing time, that time distribution summary will show up here. Time distribution is done daily, but if we are doing time distribution, we're going to show a summarized version just like we do in the timesheet. Pay matrix is if we're doing any secondary calculations special to your job or role. Generally, we won't need to expand that as an employee. If you want to see your accrual balances as it's been loaded by the county, those accrual balances will be available to you here in the summary page. And if we're doing any attendance or points evaluation based on tardies, early outs, early ins, etc. like that, that'll be visible in the point system summary. This will be disabled as part of our phase 1 go live, but may be a secondary element that the county decides to use in the future. Okay, so we've talked about the detailed timesheet and how that will show all the elements that will ultimately drive the payroll in the One Solution and payroll system. What we're going to focus now is on schedule requests and how you can view those and make changes to those as needed. So I'm going to simply go back to the dashboard, and there's two ways I can go to the scheduler page. I can click on the arrow from the leave management that we talked about earlier, or in this instance I'm going to go ahead and use our hamburger navigation menu, and I'm going to click on scheduler requests. Either way, again, however you decide to do it, from a personal preference, you can. Along the top, we've got some quick function buttons. We can undo any changes that we've made prior to save. We can reset any filters that we might have applied. So if we wanted to say we were only looking at vacation requests versus comp time, etc. We can add a request from here. So we can directly add a request instead of having to be at the dashboard. This will be the same functionality. Should I click on add request, the same button, the same box pops up as we saw on the dashboard. And I can also send reminders here from this page as well. So what we're going to see here now is we actually have the ability to come in and look at our pending requests. Okay, so in this particular case, I've got a pending request for October 7th that I made just today as part of the earlier part of the video. and I can now see that it's still in a pending status. You can see that I've got a note here. If I hover over it, kids out of school. Okay, so this is still in a pending status. Should you as an employee want to come in and click on this request, I can go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to do one of two things. Maybe I want to say I only need 4 hours this day. Okay, and I can update and save this request. Or I can come in here and I can say, you know what, I want to cancel this request altogether. And what that'll do is it'll send a workflow saying that I, the employee, no longer need October 7th off, and it'll remove that from the schedule request, and no further activity will be needed there. If this request has been approved already, it'll do the same thing. It'll send a request to the supervisor validating that the time hadn't been taken, and then allowing them as a supervisor to confirm the cancellation. If this request had already been processed to a payroll status, you can no longer remove that request as an employee. The system and the county thinks that that request has been paid, so if for some reason you did not take that time off or need that request or use that request, you would need to work with your supervisor, and there'll be some steps at that end for them to remove that request and subsequently the time from the timesheet. So in the case where I'm going to go ahead and switch it to 4 hours, I can do that, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And what that'll do, it's about to send an update to the employee indicating that now I've got a 4-hour request. So the point of this page is twofold. I can come in here, I can filter just to those requests. If I want to see history of what was approved, I can. Declined, I can. I can also see if I have any cancel pendings. We can update it there. If we'd already had an approval to that original 8-hour request, and now we've got a 4-hour request, we would have seen a modify pending here as well. Okay, so I also have my accrual summary balances. Just like we saw from the timesheet page, I've got all the different accruals that are available to me, and I'll see those in a summary format. And from a calendar view, I'll be able to see all of my requests, green for approved, yellow for pending. Also note that on the pending, if I hover over that, I can cancel the request from here. So again, multiple ways to do things, just your preference as an end user, how you want to do that. Should I have declined requests, I would see those as red boxes on the calendar. And I can then go ahead and I can use these as filters up here just to see the data that I want. So that's the schedule request page at a high level. Lots of things for you to be able to do in here and view, both from a current pending request as well as past requests. Maybe you want to see again, where I've taken time off and where maybe I've requested time off in the future. It gives you a nice visual view of all of that. But this is information as you as an employee to be able to view or modify your requests. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions, please reach out to your supervisor and/or project teams.